Amber's heart raced as she stepped into her dimly lit apartment after a long day at work. She sighed, relieved to finally be home, and locked the door behind her. The city's chilling wind seemed to have followed her in, sending a shiver down her spine. She dismissed it as her imagination, trying to dispel the unease that crept upon her. As Amber moved through her apartment, she couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. She nervously glanced over her shoulder, but the shadows remained still, seemingly mocking her paranoia. Trying to shake off her unease, she turned on every light in the living room, hoping to banish the darkness that seemed to linger in the corners. Distracting herself from mundane tasks, Amber prepared a quick dinner and turned on the TV to drown out her anxious thoughts. The news played in the background, a constant reminder of the dangers lurking in the city. Reports of a serial killer on the loose sent shivers down her spine. A predator was stalking the streets, targeting women in their homes, women who, just like her, had believed they were safe behind locked doors. As the clock ticked away, Amber's unease grew more palpable. Every creak of the floorboards and every distant sound outside seemed to amplify her fears. She tried to rationalize her anxiety, chiding herself for allowing the news to get to her. But deep inside, a voice whispered that danger was closer than she dared to admit. With a determined sigh, Amber finally decided to head to bed. She locked the front door, checked the windows, and made sure every possible entry point was secure. She slipped under the covers, pulling them tight around her, and tried to convince herself that she was safe. Minutes turned into hours as Amber lay in the darkness, her eyes darting around the room at every sound. Just as she began to drift into a fitful sleep, a faint scraping noise echoed through the apartment. Her heart pounded, and her breath caught in her throat. The room seemed to close in around her as she strained to hear if the noise was real or a product of her anxious mind. Then, a creaking sound pierced the silence, the unmistakable sound of a floorboard being stepped on. Amber's eyes widened with terror as she realized she wasn't alone. She strained her eyes in the darkness, her heart racing like a drumbeat. Fear immobilized her as the reality of her situation sank in. She was facing the very danger that had haunted her thoughts since she had entered her apartment. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall, menacing silhouette, its features obscured by darkness. The room seemed to shrink around Amber, and the air grew heavy with the stench of fear. She tried to scream, but her voice caught in her throat, and only a faint whimper escaped. The intruder's cold, calculating eyes bore into hers, a cruel grin twisting their lips. Amber's fight or flight response kicked in, and adrenaline surged through her veins. She scrambled out of bed, desperately searching for a means of escape. Her heart raced as she backed towards the bedroom door, her eyes never leaving the intruder. Just as the figure lunged toward her, a blinding light flooded the room. The deafening sound of police sirens pierced the air, and the intruder recoiled, disappearing into the shadows. In that fleeting moment, Amber caught a glimpse of the face of a predator who had been inches away from snuffing out her life. As the police stormed her apartment, Amber's trembling body collapsed to the ground. The horror of that night would forever haunt her dreams, a chilling reminder of the darkness that could intrude even the most secure spaces. The whispers of that encounter would linger, a constant reminder that safety was never guaranteed, and the line between the mundane and the macabre was thin as a razor's edge.